Welcome to Free Coding Academy's Unit 2 review video for Computer Science A. So Unit 2 is called Using Objects. Topic 2.1, Objects, Instances of Classes. So a class provides a blueprint for making objects with certain attributes and behaviors. An object is an instance of a class with specific values for its attributes, and it's declared using the class as its type. So an attribute or instance variable holds information about an object, like a turtle's color or the direction it faces. A method or behavior is an action the object can perform, such as a turtle moving forward a set number of pixels. Topic 2.2, Creating and Storing Objects or Instantiation. So a constructor initializes the attributes of a newly created object and has the same name as the class. The constructor's signature includes the constructor's name and its parameter list, consisting of data types and variable names of parameters. Constructor overloading occurs when multiple constructors exist with different parameter lists. The new keyword is used to create an object. So new class name creates the object and calls a constructor. A no-argument constructor or default constructor has no parameters and doesn't require input values to create objects. Parameters in constructors are used to initialize instance variables when an object is created. The parameter list in a constructor header defines each parameter's type and variable name, and these are called formal parameters. Actual parameters are the values passed during object creation. Formal parameters receive copies of these values. Formal parameters are declared in the constructor header. So an example is this header right here, public dog, string color int age. So this defines a class called dog, which can be used to create dog objects, and this takes the parameters color, which stores the color as a string, and the parameter age, which stores the age as an int. So call by value means that Java passes copies of values to methods or constructors, not the original variables themselves. So this means that if those values are changed within the method or constructor, the original variable that was passed in does not change outside of that method or constructor. Topic 2.3, Calling a void method. A method defines a set of instructions representing the behavior of all objects in a class. To call a method, use dot notation. Object name dot method name and then open and close parentheses, inside which you're going to put whatever parameters you need, or just the parentheses if it's a method that doesn't take any parameters. Next, a method signature consists of the method's name and its parameter list. Procedural abstraction refers to when programmers can use methods without understanding how they actually work. So when a method or constructor is called, the code within it is executed first, then returns to the point after where it was called in the program. So a null pointer exception occurs when calling a method on a variable with a null value. A non-static method must be called on an object using dot notation. So for example, dog Toby is equal to new dog Toby, 4, and then Toby.bark. So here we're creating a dog object called Toby using the dog constructor we saw on the previous slide. And so we're giving it the name Toby and the age 4. Next, we're calling the method bark on the dog object Toby. And so this is a non-static method because you're calling it on an object of the class as opposed to calling it on the class itself. So a static method is a class method, and it can be called directly on the class and does not need an object of the class. Topic 2.4, Calling a void method with parameters. So methods specify the behaviors of objects. So for instance, on the last slide, we had a method called bark for the dog class because dogs bark. So to call a method, use the object's name followed by a dot and the method name. So object.method and then parentheses. If the method requires inputs, include them inside the parentheses. So these would be your parameters. So the inputted parameters must match the types and order as defined in the method signature. Next, topic 2.5, calling a non-void method. So non-void methods return a value instead of performing an action, and they're usually called to obtain data. The returned value can be stored in a variable or used in a calculation, The returned value's type must match the method's declared return type and can only be used in places that accept that type. Topic 2.6, String Objects. Strings in Java are objects of the string class that hold sequences of characters. So string objects can be created by using string literals. So for instance, string x is equal to hi, or by calling the string class constructor. So string y is equal to new string by. So the keyword new is used to create a new object of a class. So since strings technically belong to the class string and they are objects, they should be created using the keyword new, but because strings are so commonly used, this is a shortcut you can use in Java. Next, null is a keyword used to indicate that an object reference doesn't refer to any object yet. So if you're creating a program and you know you need to have a certain variable, but you're not ready to initialize that variable and set it equal to something yet, you can just set it equal to null as a placeholder for later. Next, string objects can be concatenated or joined together using the plus or plus equals operator, resulting in a new string object. Primitive values can be concatenated also with plus with a string object. This causes implicit conversion of the values to string objects. Next, escape sequences in Java start with a backslash. So escape sequences, so basically if you want to have a backslash included in your output, you're going to have to include 2 backslashes. And if you want to include double quotes in whatever you're printing, you need to have a backslash and then the double quotes. If you want a single quote, you're going to have a backslash and then a single quote. And if you want to move to a new line, it's going to be backslash and then n. If you want a tab, that's backslash and t. And from my experience, that's typically all the escape sequences you need to know for CSA. Topic 2.7, String Methods. Index represents a character's position in a string which starts at 0. Length, the total number of characters in a string. Substring, a portion of a string taken from the original. So the valid index range for strings is from 0 to the length minus 1. And trying to access outside of this range causes an index out of bounds exception. So immutability refers to how strings in Java cannot be changed after creation. So any methods that seem to change strings actually create new ones. Next, the method .length returns the number of characters in the string. So the .substring method takes 2 parameters for start and end. So this extracts characters from the index start up to but not including the index end. Next, the method .substring takes 1 parameter for start. So this returns characters from the starting index to the end of the string. Next, the .index of method, which takes a string as a parameter. So this finds the first occurrence of whatever string you're passing in, and it returns its index within the larger string, or -1 if it is not found. Next, the .equals method takes a string as a parameter. So this checks if 2 strings are exactly the same. And when you're comparing 2 strings to check whether they have the same sequence of characters, make sure you're using this method and you're not using equals equals to compare. Because if you use equals equals, it's simply going to check whether they both point to the same location in memory, which might not be true even if they contain the same sequence of characters. Next, the .compare_to method takes a string as a parameter, and this compares 2 strings based on the ASCII alphabet, and then it returns a number. So it returns less than 0 if this string is less than other, and it returns 0 if they are equal. It returns greater than 0 if it is greater than the other string. Next, string.substring. And then index, comma, index plus 1. So this is just a formula for you to extract a single character at the specified index as a string. Topic 2.8, wrapper classes, integers, and doubles. So integer and double, notice the capital letters, are wrapper classes that turn primitive values such as int and double into objects. So integer value creates a new object with the specified int value. An integer.min value and integer.max value, as we've mentioned before, refer to the lowest possible int value and highest possible int value. And so this applies to the integer object as well. Next, the method .intValue returns the int stored in the integer object. Next, double value creates a new object with the specified double value. And the method .doubleValue returns the double stored in the double object. Next, autoboxing. This refers to the automatic conversion of a primitive to its wrapper class, so an int to an integer or a double to a double with a capital letter. So examples of autoboxing include passing a primitive to a method expecting an object, assigning a primitive to a wrapper object variable. So unboxing refers to the automatic conversion of a wrapper class object back to its primitive type. So examples would be converting an integer to an int or a double with a capital D to a double. So examples of unboxing would include passing a wrapper object to a method expecting a primitive or assigning a wrapper object to a primitive variable. Next, topic 2.9, using the math class. So static methods from the math class are called using the format math.methodName, and then parentheses or whatever parameters you're passing in. So the idea is static methods belong to the class itself, so they don't need to be called on an object of the class. Therefore, you can call the math class methods directly on the math class itself because they are all static methods. So the method .abs, which takes an int as a parameter, returns the non-negative version of an integer. So it takes the absolute value. And next, .abs, which takes a double as a parameter, returns the non-negative version of a double, so the absolute value of a double. Next, .pow, and then you're passing in two ints for base and exponent. It calculates the base raised to the power of an exponent and returns it as a double. Next, square root, and then you're passing in an integer. So this returns the positive square root of a double, so you're passing in a double. Next, random. So this produces a value between 0.0 inclusive and 1.0 exclusive. So right up to but not including 1.0. So to generate a random integer for min to max, use this formula. So int and then math.random times max minus min plus 1 plus min. And from my experience, using this formula is very, very useful in CSA. So an example, to get a number from 5 to 10, you're going to do int math.random times 6 plus 5. So 6 because 10 minus 5 plus 1 is equal to 6. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to check out the review video for Unit 3.